Half a mile back into a Missouri hillside, sealed in total darkness for the better part of a million years, the floor of Riverbluff Cave is covered in claw marks that don't belong to anything walking around today. 5 clawed gouges longer than a man's hand, 4 clawed marks cut into the same stretches of clay. Not from a black bear, not from a mountain lion, not from anything a hiker could still run into in the Ozarks right now. The animals that carved these marks into the rock have been extinct for around 11,000 years, and the only reason anyone is looking at their claw marks at all comes down to one of the strangest discovery stories in American paleontology. On September 11, 2001, a road construction crew was blasting through a limestone outcrop near Springfield, Missouri, clearing the way for a new road by the Rivercut Golf Course. Charges were already loaded into the rock that morning when news broke of the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. The federal government ordered blasting operations across the country to stop immediately. But a handful of explosives at that Missouri job site had already been set and couldn't safely be pulled back, so crews let them go off as planned. When the dust cleared, instead of a flattened hillside, there was a hole in the ground leading straight down into a cave nobody had ever known existed. Geologist Matt Fourier was among the first people ever to climb down into it. What he found stopped him cold. Stalactites and stalagmites untouched by human hands, sediment layers stacked like a timeline, and claw marks raked across the clay floor and walls, still sharp-edged, as if they'd been left days ago instead of hundreds of thousands of years earlier. The reason any of this survived at all comes down to geology as much as coincidence. River Bluff sits inside the Springfield Plateau, a region built from Mississippian-era limestone that dissolves slowly into underground cave networks, a landscape geologists call Karst. At some point long before humans ever set foot in North America, this particular cave's entrance collapsed and sealed itself shut, cutting the interior off completely from wind, water, and every scavenging animal that might have disturbed it. That seal held for hundreds of thousands of years, which is the only reason claw marks pressed into soft clay are still sharp enough today to count individual claws, instead of being worn down to nothing. Fourier and the researchers who followed him identified 2 distinct sets of tracks cut into the cave. One set carries 5 claws per print, the other carries 4. Neither matches anything alive in North America today, and neither was made by an animal a person could safely run into in these hills anymore, because both species that left these marks have been gone for thousands of years. If you're finding this interesting, be sure to subscribe to understand more DNA from the past. The 5 clawed marks belong to Arctodus simus, the short-faced bear, the largest bear species that has ever lived. Standing on all fours, it reached 5 to 6 feet at the shoulder. Reared up onto its hind legs, it topped 10 feet tall and weighed close to 2,000 pounds, built with longer legs than any bear alive today, more suited to running down prey across open ground than shuffling through forest underbrush. More than a dozen shallow oval pits scattered through the cave are believed to be bear beds, spots where a short-faced bear clawed out a depression in the soft clay and curled up to wait out the winter, the exact same instinct a modern bear still follows every single year. Bears and cats weren't the only Ice Age animals that left a trace inside. Researchers have also recovered mammoth remains from within the cave, evidence that River Bluff wasn't only used as a den and hibernation site, but intersected with the wider community of massive animals that once moved through this stretch of the Ozarks during the Pleistocene. The 4 clawed marks belong to Panthera atrox, the American lion, the largest cat that has ever lived in North America, bigger than any lion, tiger, or jaguar alive today. It likely used the cave the same way big cats use shelter now, as a den to rest in and raise young in. Safe from the weather and from the short-faced bear, it apparently shared this same stretch of rock with at different points in time. Both animals disappeared during the same broad extinction event, roughly 11,700 years ago, when a wave of megafauna across North America, mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, and dozens of other massive Ice Age species vanished within a relatively short window as the climate warmed and the glaciers retreated. The short-faced bear and the American lion were among the last of that generation of giants, and Riverbluff Cave is one of the clearest physical records left behind of what they were actually doing while they were still here. Figuring out exactly how old those claw marks are took more than just looking at them. Researchers dated the sediment layers inside Riverbluff Cave using cosmogenic isotopes, a method that measures how radiation from space slowly accumulates inside buried quartz grains over time, giving scientists a burial clock accurate across hundreds of thousands of years. Those tests placed the cave's oldest sediment layers at nearly 1 million years old, and its youngest tested layers at roughly 570,000 years old, making Riverbluff the oldest confirmed fossil cave site anywhere in North America. The claw marks weren't even the most delicate thing preserved inside. Years after the initial discovery, a researcher combing back through the cave spotted something nobody had noticed before. Tiny, segmented millipedes fossilized directly into the clay, so finely preserved that their legs and antennae were still intact and in place, among the first fossils of their kind ever documented. In a cave already producing 5-foot-long bear claw marks, it was the millipedes barely an inch long that proved just how completely undisturbed this place had been left. Telling a genuine fossil apart from an ordinary rock inside the cave isn't always obvious, even for researchers. One method museum staff still use today is pressing a suspected fossil to the inside of the bottom lip. If it sticks slightly, it's bone. If it doesn't, it's rock, a simple trick that has helped separate real Ice Age evidence from ordinary Ozark limestone ever since the cave was first explored. Subscribe to not miss the next one. Today, Riverbluff Cave is protected as a Greene County historical site, and it is not open to the public. There is no ticket to buy and no trail to walk through it. The only people who go inside are researchers entering through a sealed, locked passage built specifically to keep the cave exactly the way it was found, because the same isolation that hid it for hundreds of thousands of years is the reason it survived this intact in the first place. Because researchers wanted the science to stay accessible even with the cave closed off, Riverbluff was wired with cameras early on, making it one of the first cave systems in the world set up for virtual tours, so people could see the claw marks and bare beds without ever risking damage to them by walking through in person. None of it would exist for anyone to study at all if a single road crew hadn't been forced to stop blasting on the one morning in American history when stopping was the priority. A national tragedy unfolding hundreds of miles away is the reason a handful of already loaded explosives went off instead of being pulled back, cracking open a hillside that had sealed the bear's claw marks in total darkness for the better part of 1,000,000 years. Whatever else this cave still has left to explain about the animals that once called it home, it's still down there, in the clay, exactly where they left it.